Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Just getting started here. This is the ANC 1B Transportation, Parks, and Public Spaces Committee for our August meeting. So I'm going to share my agenda. We have 4 items tonight. And then if anyone has anything else they want to add, we can discuss. Okay, so I'll take roll in a second, but I just wanted to show everyone the agenda. So we're going to start with a kind of conversation with the president of Washington Parks and People, Steve Coleman, local nonprofit that kind of focuses on Meridian Hill, Malcolm X Park, but other parks around the city too, and just how we can be helpful as a committee with their mission. We will potentially be talking more about the 11th Street bike lane potential resolution. The notice of intent has not come out for that project yet, so we still have some time on that, but it's a carryover from last meeting. This was raised last week at the ANC meeting about construction related to Petco on 11th Street. I got an email today, kind of an update on that. So I just wanted to share that with this group. And then there's future projects on kind of the western side of the ANC that we can kind of like quickly talk about. And then the last thing is kind of interesting. And I'll explain more about it specifically when we get to it. But there's some talk about working with Cardozo High School on the 11th Street side of the building about how potentially that could become a kind of shared space with DPR and kind of some improvements to that kind of hill/lawn on that side. So we can talk about that then when we get to it. But it's kind of a potentially an interesting project for the committee to kind of be involved in. Cool. So I'm going to take roll, and I'm just going to go by how I have everyone listed in my little chart. Julius?
Present.
Santiago? Not present. Zoe?
Present.
David? David, I can see you.
Sorry.
It's okay. Jody?
Present.
Thank you. Karen? I see Karen. We'll come back before I give you an official X. Nicole?
Present.
Thank you. Guneeth?
Present.
Great. And then Jay, or actually Rebecca, not present. Ben?
Here.
Thank you. Jay?
Present.
And then Nick is not present. Karen? I'm gonna mark Karen present. Okay. So I would like to move to adopt the agenda that I kind of outlined.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay. All those in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great. Agenda adopted. Okay, so our first item, as I said, is a discussion with Steve Coleman about the mission of Washington Parks and People and how the ANC can help that. So Steve, I see you're in the audience. I see that you're here twice. So maybe could you raise your hand and I'll see which item. Okay, cool. I will promote the first Steve to panelists to join us. Okay. Okay, great. Steve, are you with us? You will have to. Yep, perfect.
Video. Here we go. Cool.
Welcome.
I'm echoing. Shoot. Because I'm on another place.
Um, uh, I could remove the other mysterious Steve, or do you want to log
Yeah,
out? Yeah.
please remove the other one.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay,
Well now.
that's better.
Yep, great. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Should I just dive in?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a little familiar with the organization, but I would like to be a lot familiar with the organization, and I feel like maybe that's the same with some of the committee members and community members.
So we've been around for 35 years. We were started out of tragedy when DC was the murder capital of the country, and the murder center was up here in Columbia Heights, actually right behind our headquarters on the 2500 block of University Place. That was the homicide center in 89-90. There were more people killed on the streets of DC in that year than all US combat fatalities worldwide in the preceding decade. And a boy was killed next to my home on Euclid Street on Dr. King's birthday, died in the arms of my housemate as she tried to save his life. She was an emergency room physician. And the police told us to go inside. You know, they drew chalk around, the boy's name was Ricky Magnus. They drew chalk around Ricky's body and basically said, go inside. That was their solution. And I was the head of our little neighborhood association at the time, and nobody thought that was an answer. And we heard about a group of African American grandparents who had started a crime patrol in the Bloomingdale, Eckington, and Edgewood neighborhoods, and then another one down in Ward 8. And we decided to reach out to the grandparents, and they created these crime patrols without any weaponry, without any vigilantism, just to stand up for community and by saying hello and really trying to make real community rather than virtual or theoretical community happen. And they've been really successful. And so we decided to do the same thing. So 9 days after Ricky died, we started patrolling Meridian Hill, Malcolm X Park at night. None of us had ever been in at night. And when we first went in, people said we were crazy. We were going to get pounced on the moment we went in. And we said, how do you know? Have you ever been there? And they said, no, it's too dangerous. And it was like that. It was just this mythic place that was so abandoned at night that people didn't really know what was going on. And what we found was it was so dangerous that it was safe. There was no one there. And so there was no one there to mug. And so there wasn't any real mugging threat, mostly at night, and there wasn't really drug dealing at night. And we started coming to the park, and we did find actually there were people who actually cared about the park who were there at night, who had memories of it. And as we said hello, we learned their stories. We learned these memories of the elders, and then we started coming to the park more in the daytime and finding that elders had memories, and a lot of the elders had given up on the dream, and kids had dreams but didn't really have any memory, any evidence that their dream could be real. And so by themselves, they were kind of these separate camps that were powerless, but put together, we could do some pretty amazing things. And that's what we did. We just kind of channeled the history of the hilltop. We found out that the park was built as America's first national park created for the performing arts. The woman who created Wolf Trap would later help to produce the concerts on Meridian Hill. We learned that it was an ancient sacred ground of the Natchitoches Tank and Piscataway nations going back 1,000 generations. We just learned all these things that we channeled in trying to bring the park back to life. And in so doing, in 4 years of work or 5 years of work, we reduced crime in the park ultimately by 99%. Went from being the single most crime-ridden national park in the whole region to one of the single safest. Not through massive police action, but through tremendous community engagement. Hundreds of organizations, thousands, tens of thousands of volunteers. It was really an amazing testament to the power of community. And we got the highest honor in the national park system from President Clinton. Ironically, the same year that he enacted what became known as the mass incarceration legislation, he recognized what we had done to prevent the crime from happening in the first place through a much more community-based model of prevention. So the park is an amazing place, And it's a story. The story I just told you is one I've told all over the country and around the world. It actually became a model for urban park partnerships in many other countries. We helped found World Urban Parks, doing the same work in 140 countries. And it's not rocket science. It's as old as people gathering on the hills. But over the years, we've sponsored hundreds of concerts in the park, hundreds of thousands of volunteers through the years, all different kinds of advocacy efforts, of media promotion. We did a lot back in the early days with the Washington Post and others, basically saying, you guys have been reporting how horrible this park is for 30, 40 years. Now you need to report every good thing that happens there. And that made a big difference. And then the Post ran a lead editorial saying it was called The Retaking of Meridian Hill, and they said this should be a model for other parks around the city. And that became the genesis of us expanding to be Washington Parks and People. So over the past 35 years, we've worked on 300 parks all over town, all 8 wards, schoolyards, playgrounds, stream valley systems, community gardens, vacant lots, farm parks, you name it. DC is the greenest major city on the North American continent. We have the highest percentage of public green acreage, and yet we don't invest in it. We don't really take care of it, and we especially don't make it come alive. Our Parks Department budget is woefully inadequate to meet the needs of our people and the possibilities. In fact, generally, politically, when you talk about parks, people tend to think, oh, that's just vacant land. It's not really usable until there's a building on it. And it's just really sad, because actually a lot of our kids in many parts of the city are denied safe, reliable use of the outdoors, which can have a massive impeding effect on their cognitive development when they don't see nature and kind of how the world works. So our highest priority area is right where we started in Meridian Hill, but also in far northeast in Ward 7. So we're in Ward 1 and Ward 7, and we do work in all the other wards. And it's kind of a strange thing. It's like, the best of times and the worst of times. We have all these amazing parks, and we're rated the #1 park system, urban park system in America by the Trust for Public Land. But that's just a quantitative figure. When you look at the quality, like, is it safe for kids to actually get to the parks? Are they alive? Are they part of their daily lives? And the answer is often no, all too often no, especially in the neighborhoods that need those places, and the families that need those the most, where they don't have an option for some other kind of recreation farther away. And the DPR budget went down in the current decision making. And it's in effect been going down for many years, because every time a new rec center is built, they take staff out of working on the outdoors to work on running these rec centers. So we have these huge kind of suburban style rec centers, and the thought is that's where all the action is. And they've never really had the operations budget catch up with the capital budget. So like this year, the DPR capital budget went up enormously, but the operating budget went down, which is not how it should work. And so Parks and People is really trying to create a lasting kind of substantive and people platform for standing up for and investing in and leveraging the power of parks of all kinds, including vacant lots. We even own a couple of former alley-bound vacant lots, one in Columbia Heights and one up in Petworth. And kind of putting forth the idea that we can really do better. Like during the pandemic, the mayor closed all of the city parks. And there was some effort to even close some of the federal ones, like Meridian Hill, Malcolm X. Some of you may remember when the National Guard was deployed there in the early days of the pandemic, basically terrifying toddlers when they just wanted to get out of the house and fly a kite with their mom or something. And the National Guard folks were actually super spreaders, because they were sitting inside a closed van with no masks on in between their shifts. And it was even worse in many of the city parks, where they were technically shut down, but in many cases, DPR and DGS and other city agencies already do next to nothing in many of these parks. they'll do things again on the capital side, they'll build a new playground, but when it comes to the staffing, the roving leaders are not generally roving into the parks. The urban rangers are not ranging. They're usually more kind of rec center security guards. They used to do really cool stuff, doing like mentorship and community engagement and programming out in the parks. And now people have been saying, well, some of these national park sites should be shifted to the city, which would be wonderful. As a DC statehood advocate, I believe in that, except we're not ready for that at all. And so where we want to get to is a point where we're not trying to like strip parks out of the National Park Service. We want to build all the parks as like a three-way partnership between the federal government, the city, and the communities. And I think we've got a lot of basis for doing that. And so really showing how parks can be something more than an abstraction. Like politically, if you talk about parks in a lot of the underserved parts of town, people think, well, you will usually say that's irrelevant to urgent human needs. And they forget that parks are where you counter violence. Parks are where you build community, where you build engagement, where you can actually create, safe ways to get to the bus stop and get to, through green transit corridors and bike lanes and all that sort of stuff. You can actually get to work reliably without having to take your life into your own hands. You can grow food in the parks. Right now, the city has a goal of 20 new acres by 2030 under cultivation. We think ultimately that's off by 2 orders of magnitude, that we can create places where we're growing food and growing community and growing peace and hope and justice through agroecology, agroforestry, and we have models for this in multiple parts of town. So it's kind of a really weird situation right now where you have this executive order from the White House that is saying, we want to make DC safe and beautiful from the White House. And yet the federal government has been a big part of the problem in how parks are handled and how DC is treated like a toddler when it comes to how the opportunities we have to partner and to really leverage how our green spaces are used. I mean, the idea that, I've like risked my life to help transform Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park in my own neighborhood, but I have to beg just to be able to clean graffiti, 35 years after starting that work. And that's just not right. And if you look at models around the country, even within the national park system, there are far better, more empowered approaches to partnerships in other cities that have congressional representation where they're given real respect. San Francisco is a great example. And, there are plenty of other examples around the country. And so DC, while we have the quantitative advantage on parks, we're really not leading the way. I mean, our neighborhoods are doing amazing things, but in terms of the public-private partnerships that have come to define the best parks in America, we're way behind the ball. And what we really need is we need more of a political force. We need to really, Mayor Bloomberg, Mayor Daley in Chicago didn't start out as tree huggers or park lovers. They were convinced that they were shown how parks were critical for justice, for economic investment, for community pride, for these intangibles of community that are so important. And right now, when we have kind of performative cruelty that's happening in our streets with attempted and actual abductions of our people by unnamed, unfaced people claiming to be police, this is when we really need not virtual community, but the real thing. And that's what our village greens are meant for. And so for generations, Meridian Hill has been a place where people have come to lift up kind of the world as it should be. It's been a place of protest. It's been a place of mourning. It's where 20,000 of our neighbors gathered after Dr. King was assassinated in May of '68 to have Pearl Bailey give a concert there before the masses. The parks have been the places where we can rise to our best. It was true in the pandemic. Once we got the National Guard out, Meridian Hill Malcolm X became a Garden of Eden for the community. On any given day, you'd find over 500 people who were distancing and yet together in a way they couldn't be anywhere inside. And so we have a real job to do. We really need to figure out how we can make the case for parks in a more lasting and holistic way. We've done pieces of this. We created a unit on parks within the Parks Department that was supposed to help them get back to focusing on parks. There was the Office of Natural Resources that was created, but it's all pretty piecemeal, and it's piecemeal, especially when you look at the different parts of the government. One of the key things we're missing in this mayoral administration is an integrative approach to public lands, which is really key. I remember in the early days of the efforts that we launched on Marvin Gaye Park in far northeast DC, which became the biggest community park revitalization in DC history, Mayor Williams would have us come in to brief his entire cabinet on what we were doing there, because he saw that as a model for how you have a citywide, government-wide approach to what happens in public space. So you're not just putting all the pressure on the Parks Department. You're looking at the Health Department, at the schools, at the police, at the fire department, at mental health, at just all these different parts of public life. Because really, that's what the Village Greens should be. And Mayor Fenty, when he came in, had his first field cabinet meeting in our program base in far northeast in Ward 7. We have the old nightclub where Marvin Gaye first performed. And he came out of that meeting with his cabinet and he pointed to everything in the park and said, look here, come back here in 4 years and take a measure of my administration, because this is where we're going to make an impact. 4 years later, the only thing that was changed was that we, the community, built a playground there, designed by kids living in public housing. And Mayor Bowser, as his protege, has really missed the mark on this. And I'm not saying this to vilify her. I want to help her be a hero. I want her to be the Mayor Bloomberg for DC, who really understands, or the Mayor Daley or Choose Your Model, who really comes around and sees how clear cutting trees in Rock Creek Park or whatever, this is not how you actually move a great city forward. We have a real opportunity and an obligation, I think, to lift up what our parks can mean for our people, hence our name. So Parks and People is around. We work all over. We have an upcoming volunteer session this coming Saturday at 9 o'clock. We do the third Saturday of every month at Meridian Hill Malcolm X. We meet by the Joan of Arc sculpture, which, by the way, was given by the women of France to the women of America when the women of America got the right to vote and the women of France were still waiting. We think it's a pretty cool testament to the importance of voting rights. But yeah, come join us. We're on the net at washingtonparks.net. And we also can arrange other kinds of partnerships and volunteer times anytime anybody's interested. Like we'll have 100 Howard University students a week later in the park. There's all kinds of opportunities like that. And then the larger thing is to really think, even though a lot of these are federal parks, we need to think of them as first and foremost community places. And even though technically the ANC, the council, none of us have jurisdiction, we all do, because these are community parks and they first and foremost serve the innermost concentric circle of people who live around and use them. And we need to assert that. And we need to demand that graffiti not sit there for a decade as it has, with no permission to the community, with us having to fight just to be able to use the right kind of chemicals and being blamed for wanting to clean graffiti. That's just wrong. And really thinking, there have been incentives now built into some of the national park, like Director's Order 21, to really incentivize having true, lasting, embedded community partnerships. And that's really what we need. So that's just kind of an overall summary. We are headquartered at the Josephine Butler Park Center, which is a really cool place, built with a lot of help from this ANC and dozens of community organizations throughout the neighborhood. It was a building originally built to be the home of the vice president, which was reclaimed by over 60,000 volunteers through the years. It's 40 rooms. And we actually have weddings there that help pay for all the work that we do all over town. But it's there, and we'd love to have the commission come meet there sometime. If you ever want a place for like a award ceremony or some other kind of thing, it's great for all that sort of stuff. And we're here. We're constituents. I hope that's a helpful intro.
No, it's helpful. I've been to 2 weddings in that building. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I want to ask the committee if they have any questions for you or any comments. But first, is there anything that you can think of like besides the volunteer opportunities, which are very great and everyone should, volunteer when they can, but like what can this committee or the ANC as a whole, like in your view, do to help either with the federal parks or our local neighborhood parks? I know Guneev at our last meeting was talking about some issues and disappointments he has with like the Harrison Recreation Center and Park, how often it's closed and it's not accessible to the community. Like, what do you think would be a good use of our time to help?
I think the biggest thing we need to do is to lift up the value of parks. Anything we can do to document what the parks mean for the community is golden, because we're just so vastly underestimating and undervaluing and therefore deeply underinvesting in the parks. And so that's really, I think, the most important thing. That can help us with the federal advocacy, with the city advocacy, and with private fundraising and constituency building. I remember a time when the National Trust for Historic Preservation was doing a contest for funding of historic places across the region. And it was all a voting thing where you had to go online and vote for the monuments you most wanted to help. And Meridian Hill Malcolm X was way down the list. There are much more famous places like Iwo Jima that were just doing great. And we put together a QR code and we went out on Cinco de Mayo in the park and we went picnic blanket to picnic blanket in the park. And it was so cool to watch our votes just go soaring past Iwo Jima. And we got $50,000 by doing that. Well, it's a microcosm of what we all can and need to do for the parks. We really need to show that value in a way that, the Post used to do it pretty intensively. We were on the front page and all that sort of stuff. We now need to do that at the grassroots level and really redefine our relationship to these public lands. There are amazing stories all across the 1B territory of these lands and how they're tied into our heritage and stuff. And we need them in the schools. We need everybody thinking about how we integrate them into our lives.
Great. Jay, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate the presentation and all of the work that you all are doing and have done. I just want to ask, is the organization on social media so that we either, the committee or ANC or us individually can, share your volunteer opportunities and other events?
Absolutely, yeah. And I will say we have erred on the side of being much stronger IRL than virtual. But we recognize that we have to do that better. So we're on the web and we're on, Instagram and Facebook and all that. So thank you very much. It's a great point. And we're doing more now with video, for example. I take the comment seriously, and we're going to keep stepping up on that end.
Karen?
Well, hi, Steve. As always, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
As a former member who got her teeth cut on the Orange Hat Patrol, as you were speaking so lovely about the grandmothers who nurtured the park and nurtured our neighborhood. And because the Meridian Hill Malcolm X Park, as we finally call it Malcolm X Park, is the historical storytelling for this park it's been a great resource for our community, the Black community, the African American community here in the area, because that was the park that we all only could go to, really, to have nice, beautiful family gatherings. And I just, I really, if you captured some of the photos of the park as it was progressing, of course, during the time when this area was divested in, there was a lot of neglect in this entire area. So, of course, people had those myths. But as you know, truly, it wasn't. It was really empty. There was some other nefarious things that was happening at the park that people do know of. But I can tell you that it's the most beautiful park. I think it's the most beautiful park in Washington, D.C., quite frankly. And I think that the maintenance of the park, with the waterfall and the restoration of the Joan of Arc sculpture is really nice. I think that anytime that we can get people there to just enjoy it, the scenery is so scenic and beautiful. As you said, videos and everything is anytime you do anything of that nature and you post it on the social media sites, I think that that would be helpful. And also since ANC 1B has been invested in doing a lot of activities in the park through their community engagement, I think that you should make sure that those instances are captured in some of the videos. And I know a lot of the people with ANCs have been using it to shoot their ANC campaign videos. So I'm just letting you guys know that because it's a scenic park. So that's ways that people in our ANC can do it. And I think, inviting people to make their proposal videos and family photo shoots and stuff like that. Those are really great ways to get that picturesque quality of using a park in our campaigns. I think that if we use that as the first setting and the end setting of all of our campaigns for how to describe this entire area, I think that will really up the ante in regards to publicizing information about the park because it's the focal point of this entire area. But thank you, Steve, as always. And do not forget about our African drummers. Steve, I'm amazed that you didn't mention that. I'm like, out of all the things you talked about, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the drummers were there long before our effort, and
Hello?
they'll be there for, generations
Yes,
to come. And it's the best and biggest drum circle on the East Coast. Um,
exactly.
but there are a lot of the stories of the African American community that have been censored out of the story of the park. There's wayside signage in the park that is just blatantly racist,
Yes,
that takes the Joaquin Miller, the poet of the Sierras, who's the guy who built a log cabin on the site, and describes him as a horse thief with no evidence, and has a
unfortunately, yes.
ridiculous picture of him in bed for no reason, and then juxtaposes him with this illustrious picture of Colonel or Commodore Porter in a full naval uniform, and the headline in huge type that's been there for almost 20 years says heroes and horse thieves. So we know the white guy is the hero and the person of color is the horse thief. Imagine what that does to our kids
It,
walking through there and seeing that. So there's so many stories like the drummers, even the fact that the park itself was historically a predominantly African American community that was removed in order to create the park. So there's a direct
right.
obligation that the park has to the people of color who still live in the neighborhood.
Right. And it's really important. I mean, because I mean, and this is my family members and friends, we have great stories and great photos and it's so important that it's told. But as you mentioned, oftentimes, and I do know, Steve, that you do bring this up. I was amazed that you didn't do it tonight, but there's oftentimes, we have so many beautiful stories that can be told and it needs to be interwoven
Mhm.
in anytime there's a presentation about the park. But thank you very much, Steve, for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Guneet, you're muted.
Thank you. Steve, thanks for being here and thanks for everything you've done. I truly, can't commend you enough. So as Matthew alluded to, I last call brought up the park, Garrison Park, here just because since I live a few blocks away. Often when I walk by, it's closed. And so I was hoping to get an understanding of why that might be the case. And it sounds like it could be a funding issue based on what you've described. I'm curious if you've tried working with the park there, hosted any events, because oftentimes it sits empty. Harrison Rec Center, thank you. And especially, so the basketball court and the little playground is open usually, but the big green space, which is the baseball park, softball park area, is often closed. I think it gets used maybe every few weeks, like once a month or every other month. I'll see, like little league games or something, but I wish I would be able to picnic there or something. It would be nice to be able to do that and enjoy that green space and enjoy the outdoors exactly for the reasons you described. So I'm curious if you are familiar with what might be happening there.
Yeah, it's a citywide problem. Again, it is related to budget and staffing. Because because of the budget shortfalls, the fields like that tend to be locked unless they have a paying customer, which is really wrong. It's not how parks are supposed to work. And often the urban park rangers who I was mentioning, their only role with respect to parks is locking and unlocking those spaces. And so when you could, if you were investing, before Mayor Fenty, those guys were doing incredible things out in the parks. They actually were urban park rangers. And then Fenty pulled them all out of the parks and made them into rec center security guards. And they're kind of still stuck there. So there are multiple problems in how the staff are funded and how they're deployed. But fundamentally, when you look at the urban rangers, the roving leaders, the core parts of DPR that used to do programming outside, they're not there. And so there's a citywide problem that we really have to remedy.
I'm not expecting a response, but I do want to make a joke in that I feel like as a taxpayer, that's my payment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it should be a minimum in the compact that you expect as as a taxpayer.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping at a future like fall meeting, either September or October, to have someone from the Parks Department come talk so we can like directly talk about some of these issues. But yeah, well, thanks for being here, Steve. I want to move on to our other agenda items. If you ever have a specific ask or something like a resolution or something that it would be beneficial to have like the support of the ANC on anything, keep us in mind. We write resolutions at the committee level and send them up to the full ANC. So if there's anything that catches your eye that the ANC would be helpful on, let us know.
Cool. And on the Harrison thing and anything like that, we're happy to support community advocacy and partnerships, friends groups. We can serve as fiscal sponsors at no charge. If people want that kind of support, that's always available. So thanks a lot for having me.
Can I mention one thing?
Oops, sorry. Okay, Johnny, and can I say something quickly to Steve, and then can we have one of our meetings, in-person meetings there?
In the park, at the park center?
No, at Josephine Parks.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We'd love to have you, please.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And I apologize, Johnny. Thank you.
No, I'm willing to forgive you.
Thank
Steve,
you, sir.
I'd like to, you're welcome. Don't let it happen again. I'd like to thank you, Steve, for your commitment to this community.
Thank you.
Decades-long commitment.
Thank you, sir.
Your legacy will carry on. We'll be sure of that.
I see that in all of you guys, and I appreciate your convening and focusing on this. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
So our next item was to talk more about the 11th Street bike lane. I think if I remember correctly, Jay, you were gonna potentially take a stab at a resolution. The notice of intent has not been issued yet, so we don't necessarily have to make any decisions tonight, but just as a, as an update, have we started working on a resolution or anything?
I have not been able to yet. So the short answer is no.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I think if anyone has any more thoughts on the resolution, feel free to share them with me or Jay or both. Jay and anyone else, like all the notes I took from the discussion last meeting are on the website on the minutes. So that can be a reference for some of the things that we talked about. And once they issue the notice of intent, it's like a 30 or 45 day comment period. So we'll have time to get there'll be definitely be another meeting and the ability to submit them to DDOT. So great. I just wanted to make sure that doesn't get forgotten. So the next item was a kind of an email I got from VDOT, from PEPCO, that if anyone was watching, I'm gonna share my screen. If anyone was watching our full ANC meeting on last Thursday, seen the email, I don't know, it doesn't really help, but there were some complaints from neighbors in kind of like the 1B02, I believe, area, like 11th Street, about PEPCO doing some work related to Capital Grid that was kind of unannounced and not well communicated. And so then PEPCO followed up with us and said that the current work that they're doing, and there were some complaints about blocking the bike lane and things like that, will be wrapping up Friday or Saturday of this week. But then they will be returning to put some additional cable. So there'll be some issues with like covering the manholes. But the construction itself will be done. So hopefully that's wrapping up soon and they do a better job of communicating which streets are going to be closed to people. And in that vein, some major work is going to be happening with the Champlain substation. This Champlain substation is technically outside of ANC 1B, just north of Florida Ave, but there will be some impacts to U Street, 17th Street, Seton Street, and Florida Ave within ANC 1B. So that kind of starts really in September. And I think they'll have some more specifics as it gets closer. And I think they might even come back to the full ANC with that information. But I just wanted to share that here too, since there will be some decently significant impacts to the roads. Hey, Jay.
It might be worth reaching out to ANC 1A and specifically Billy. They just finished rebuilding the Harvard Street substation at Harvard and Sherman, and at minimum, they can tell us what to expect from this. And I know, in particular with that project, there were, substantial and long-running sidewalk closures issues even after the main construction was supposedly done. And they kept actually coming back and reclosing the sidewalk, often with no notice and with no safe accommodation or alternate, way of getting around. So, at minimum, it will be something that we need to keep an eye on, if not, try to prevent beforehand, so that we don't run into and have to deal with the same issues that were caused with the Harvard and Sherman project.
That's a good point, and thank you for suggesting reaching out to 1A about that. This is mostly my SMD where the Champlain work is going to be happening. So I guess, will be on me to yell at PEPCO, but if anyone else would also like to yell at PEPCO in their personal capacity, I fully support that.
Yeah, the block right in front of me is V Street between 12th and 13th. For the past few weeks, it's finally done now. But I think it was PEPCO. I just Googled it. It actually is PEPCO. They had closed down the street. The only notice that was there was the typical parking spot signs whenever you're trying to save that spot. But otherwise, there was no other real notice or like door-to-door knocking of, hey, the entire block is going to be closed down.
And what
There was some kind of emergency also, right?
with on 11th Street, I believe there was some sort of emergency, which does you know, if there's an emergency and they have to fix something like as fast as possible, there can be you know, reasonable exceptions made, I suppose, but it is still frustrating for neighbors, and people could be notified about what's going on after.
Yeah, and with 11th Street also, there was, you know, not only the bike lanes in basically both directions were often being blocked by either the work or just the truck parking, but they also closed off the entire sidewalk between Clifton and Florida Avenue for most of a couple of weeks. I believe as of Monday, that is, they're correct, that is no longer, I haven't seen them in the last few days. But, you know, it's again, and in that case, I'm sure they probably think also that there is nobody to notify because it's not like anybody's houses immediately front on that section of 11th Street, although there is, you know, the entire housing complex on top of the hill that more or less fronts on that section, as well as, you know, everybody else who walks up and down the hill. So
Great. So I guess I don't really have like an action item other than, I guess, like, feel free to report issues directly to Pepco. If you notice like recurring issues at specific locations, like you can bring them up to me and or your individual SMD member, who can like notify Pepco on your behalf. And then, you know, I don't know that we'll do an ANC resolution on this, but like communication with Pepco about specific issues, or like failure to like clean up issues after construction is done and unblock sidewalks and things like that. I guess just if you notice them, share that with people so we can like try to get Pepco to be a good neighbor. Okay, so the last item on the agenda is not an official project yet. It's like becoming a project kind of. So a couple months ago, I had a conversation with the chair of 1B, Chair Trindade, and the council member's office, Brienne Nadeau, about one of her staff people, about the eastern side of Cardozo High School, and its potential for becoming a site more of an active space for students and the community through a partnership with DPR. They were able to get some money into the budget for expanded or new park space, kind of in Ward 1 specifically, kind of either in like the Columbia Heights, C Street kind of area. And they've kind of keyed in on the Cardozo space, and let me pull up on Google Maps, like Street View, exactly where we're talking about, just so people know. Just because it's kind of over the years become a neglected space, kind of like what we've been talking about previously, and could use some love. Let's see if my computer will cooperate.
I know that there's a number of people in the neighborhood who basically use this area as a dog run, but also there's a number of like path lights, sidewalk lights for this area that have been functionally inoperative for at least most of the last year, if not much longer.
Yeah, so that's kind of both of those issues are kind of what has helped why the council member's office kind of has wanted to do something about this space. You know, it's the side lawn of a high school. It's not intended to be a free range dog run, and that's what a lot of people are using it for. Benches are in disrepair. This is from 2019. I think that's the most recent street view, so we're not getting like a good representation. But a lot of the lights are out. Last time I was there, it was overgrown and didn't, you know, now it looks quite nice actually in the street view. But like overgrown, not well maintained by DGS, Department of General Services, broken lights, people just kind of letting their dogs run around. And so that kind of idea is to, with DPR funding and making it kind of more like an official park, potentially this playground could be expanded. Currently, the playground back there is, I think, exclusively used by the daycare. So maybe turning the playground into more of a community focused, like anybody could use playground, repair the lights and benches, kind of like some improved landscaping, and if feasible, maybe an actual dog run or dog park somewhere. So that would hopefully like decrease the amount of just like people letting their dogs out and to wander around the school grounds. The most recent update is that we've reached out to one of the vice principals at Cardozo, and she was very excited about it, and is going to be helping to kind of shepherd this idea from the school side, and identify potentially students that could help with the project, kind of like as a community visioning, like what would it mean for the school to have a park on the grounds? What would students like to see at the space? And then kind of my thinking, and that's what we can discuss tonight, is like how could the ANC work with the school, work with the community to come up with suggestions to give to DPR and the council's office and the mayor's office to like make all of this happen. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and that's kind of the big picture. Karen.
Okay, you actually, Jay he put the before and after, well, you did the after or before, whichever, before the neglect, and he did boy, the poor picture that we see, that Jay presented. But what I wanted to do is, as you were saying it, that the vice principal had the right idea, because a lot of the DC public school systems are trying to find ways to get the students involved in green space, agriculture, repair, and also teaching them ways. And I'm sure Steve, he probably is going to give accolades to this, on how to respect the grounds in which they actually have in the school's possession. And Howard University has an agricultural school under Howard, and I would definitely say that one of the partnerships that we can do to get any of the students with Cardoza paired with that programming, that would be a great way to get them to understand the space. But I know as long as it's under the DC public school system, I would suggest working with our council member, Lewis George, who heads up the parks and facilities. So that's her purview, if we're going to have that conversation. But just as we have Steve with his wonderful experience in parks, I would suggest partnering with him as well as an expert, a subject matter expert, on what we should do too. So, I mean, along with the exciting opportunities that the students can bring forward, as the vice principal said, I think that would be a great plan, but it needs to be an action oriented plan where we actually are going to accomplish something. So we should give ourselves some benchmarks if we're going to work on this project, so that we can check in to see exactly how it's going to show up. That's my thought. And don't forget to look in the chat for my new the 2 things that I want you to see. Thank you, Chair.
I saw that you posted, but I have not been able to read all of it yet, but we will get to it.
Thank you.
We're done with this. So yes, so great comments, Karen. I think there definitely is money set aside, so that I think, like, yeah, if we're like specific and towards goals, like something can happen. And so I think that's one part that is exciting, because it's not just oh, let's think about a thing. It's like there's already money kind of programmed, which is helpful. Steve?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Just a little bit of history. The grove of trees that's at the center of that site was actually planted by parks and people, prompted by students who wanted to create that, turn that site into a peace park years ago. And there was some good initial efforts on that, and we'd be happy to help in any way that we can with moving this forward, including, Karen's great idea of weaving in agriculture and or agroforestry. There's some really wonderful things being done with agroforestry all over town now. I think it's a very important site. I think it has a lot of capacity, and it's really neat that you guys are focusing on that.
Yeah, the agroforestry is kind of interesting, especially if like the grove of trees was originally like envisioned by students to be a peace park and kind of to be a grove. Like if then like the next iteration is like an orchard of peace, right? Like furthering that idea with like a new concept that has lots of benefits kind of is interesting. I saw Jay, you took your hand down, I guess.
I've also had some previous conversations with the council member's office about this, and actually when I was running for ANC last year, because this is in what would have been my SMD, I also had some conversations with some residents who do use the area as a dog park, um, and who interestingly were not supportive of the idea of it being a formalized dog park, partly because of the idea of like having large and small dogs, and uh, potentially less well socialized or less recallable dogs using the area if it were to become a fenced park. So I don't know if I necessarily fully agree with that, but I have had sort of similar experience with unfenced dog parks, having a certain effect on who actually brings their dog to and uses that park. They tend to be, people who have more control over their dog. But so just wanting to make the committee aware of that potential thread in, thought of about it from elsewhere.
Yep. I mean, what they're doing now is technically not allowed. So
Yeah, I did point that out, and he was like, "This is true, but also," I was
yeah,
like, it wasn't worth arguing on somebody's doorstep about it.
you're right. I think though, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, in the current situation of people just letting their dogs run around like the high school grounds unleashed is not a good situation. So if we can improve the property and then figure out a way that people who have dogs could still let them exercise outside and stuff and play, but in a more like orderly manner where it's not encroaching on like a public high school, I think that would be better for everybody. Zoe?
Moving away from dogs, this is just a plug to Karen mentioned Howard, but also UDC has a big environmental and urban ecology program, but also They run our city's Master Naturalist and Master Gardener programs, which is a huge wealth of volunteers to do planting and also connections on where to get free and reduced cost plants.
Cool. Good. It's always important to remember all of our great universities in the district. Johnny?
Jay, was this just one person who shared that
This
they
was,
didn't?
yeah, this was one specific conversation. But
Okay.
you know, I've uh used to have a dog many years ago and go to uh a you know a dog park that was maintained by the city of Pittsburgh, but was in it was not a fenced dog park. And so I have had the experience of a legitimated, I think is the word I was looking for, you know, dog park that, you know, the the folks who would bring their dog to it were, those who had control over that more than people who would bring their dogs to a fenced dog park that they, didn't worry about their dog running out into traffic. Um, that was sort of the part of what this person was expressing, as well as concern about large and small dogs in the same space.
Okay. So I go to S Street Dog Park, and that's pretty good. I don't know, maybe we can ask the folks who run that how it's going, if they have any data. I respect the one data point. I would say, I mean, it's just even just looking out. If people are already illegally using it, adding fences would probably be a good addition to the community, especially because that street is kind of far. I'm in favor of it, is the short of it. And while I hear that person's um, point of view, I respectfully disagree. I think there are more people in DC who are adopting dogs and having children, and to make a space for them would be awesome. And to do it in a responsible way. And an untrained dog, an unrecallable dog, I mean, it is what it is. I don't think fences magically train dogs. But I'm in favor of it. I don't know if other folks on this call are.
I think,
Great.
yeah, broadly speaking, I'm also in favor of, creating certainly creating a usable public space out of this that, and, if there is a way to create a legitimate dog park, because clearly there is some demand for it you know, in this neighborhood, I would be in favor of it. I just did want to also raise the concern that I heard from a neighbor when I suggested it.
Yep. Thanks, Shay. So for kind of next steps, the school, we put on the calendar another meeting with the vice principal for like September 5th. That would be kind of like a planning meeting. They have kind of a back to school open house type thing on some sort of event on the 13th of September, where they are going to start like socializing the idea to like the broader school community, and potentially having a slide from the ANC or people interested in working on this, as kind of a, hey, we want to do this thing. Let's get together and talk about it. So those are the kind of currently next planned steps. What I'm interested in is if anyone is particularly interested in this idea from the committee and would like to volunteer to be involved more directly, like potentially working on this with the school, with some students. We're still kind of shaping up. The vice principal's kind of taking the lead on like how that's going to work at the moment, but there could be opportunities to work directly with students, have some meetings, like charrettes or like little planning workshops, brainstorming sessions, like that type of thing. So no, you don't have to answer now, but like if anyone's interested, think about it. I'm looking for volunteers to kind of help with this. So great. So that's that project. If you're interested on getting more involved, besides just at the committee meetings, monthly committee meetings, let me know, shoot me an email, and I can give you more information, get you invited to that planning meeting. Now, the final item is Karen in the chat said she had some additional items that she wanted to discuss. So Karen, do you just want to, I see that they seem to be mostly about streeteries on U Street. Is that the issue?
Well, actually, it's about the abandoned streeteries that's on U Street that DDOT. We need to really contact them because it's they're public safety hazards. Because that's my purview, and I try to stay in my lane on that, in spite of the way Johnny tries to take over that. But I knew I was going to get you back. But they're abandoned, and what they do is they create a public nuisance. And I'm not talking about in respect to how people are monitoring it during these upcoming 30 days. I'm just saying that they're barriers that are abandoned, vacant, and DDOT really needs to get on top of it, and they need to hear from the ANC and how it really creates a problem. I can let you know from MPD it's an issue, and that's what definitely where I have concentrated on. And so I gave you the addresses in the chat, and I'm hoping that we can critically make sure that it's addressed from this point of view, because if this is the space for it. And then the secondary thing is, as you know, I'm a disability advocate, and I've brought this up before, but I think it's really, really important that we make sure that the opportunity, although we just went through Disability Pride Month last month, but the opportunity for people who are in multifamily housing to have access to parking, to get a parking space. They have been discriminated against by the city to be able to get a parking space within their home area, and I get a lot of information about this all the time. And I've brought this up before in our previous term, and I'm going to keep bringing this up because I think we really need to speak on that or write a resolution in regards to it. I have a lot of whereas clauses that I can provide to you, and you guys know when it's something that I'm really into, I have those already in deck. So along with myself and Johnny, I'm sure that we can come up with something.
Yeah,
I'm
Karen.
not neglecting anyone else, but and Santiago, he's also and Ben. I mean, I'm just saying that because I know we've worked on this before, so I just want to make sure that I highlight those partners in our beautiful committee. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Karen, on that, the second item first, if you would like to take a stab at or work with the committee member of your choice to draft a resolution on that, I think that would be great. And then we could we could talk about it at an upcoming meeting if we have the draft, and then I can put it on the agenda whichever month you think would work for the draft, and we can have a robust discussion of it. I think there's lots of issues where the city, like trash collection in multifamily buildings versus single family buildings or row houses, is another issue similar to this, where the city favors single family over multifamily. So yeah, if you want to take a stab at that, a draft, and it can just be a draft, right? Like if you have the whereas clauses in a couple resolve clauses or whatever, we can workshop it. Just get the bones together, and we can
Kind sir,
do
you have asked the right person, and I'm happy.
it.
I'm happy to oblige. And if anyone, as you had, I am everyone who's open to work on this with me. I'm certainly happy to work on this with you all. I'm a great working partner, and I will contribute a whole lot towards this, but I really want to hear other people's opinion besides my own. Thank you very much.
Great. And then on the other one, I just added both of these items to the agenda, which will turn into the minutes. So the abandoned streeteries on U Street, you seem to mostly have identified the 1200 block as the big problem block. Do you think that, I mean, it's probably an issue in other places too, but it seems like 1200 block is the hotspot.
Well, those were specifically identified through MPD.
Okay.
That's the reason why I sort of had those real specific asks. However, as you mentioned, there are others, and I think that maybe even throughout 1B, we could probably look to see if there's others that can be added to that list. But for the starter, I think DDOT, if they concentrate on those first, because that's our hotspot area, and
Mhm.
I want to make sure that the contribution to our public safety efforts can, really be taken care of first. And then any other ones that we can add to it, I'm certainly delighted to add to that as well. Thank you.
Okay. I know my understanding of the streetery program is that all like essentially non-compliant streeteries that haven't applied for the new streetery permit are supposed to be removed by the end of the year.
Correct.
Um, uh, do you or do you, and Jay, this might be why you have your hand up, I don't know, but
DPW is working with us on DPW will be the actual removal, but
mhm,
DDOT needs to start. They have not we tried okay, DPW, I myself, we've all and I'm talking about the heads of DPW have been trying to activate DDOT. And DDOT, they've gone through staffing changes, but I really want to firm everything up so that they know that this needs to happen. And the more layers that we can add to the ask is the better. Did I answer your question? I'm hoping I did.
So if the establishment does not remove them on their own accord and they did not apply for debris removal assistance with DDOT and DPW or do not by October 1st, because I think that's the deadline for that, what happens then? Is the city supposed to just go in and tear them out? Does the restaurant get fined? Does it, do you know?
I know there's always that nice way of waiting for people to do
Right,
things.
right.
Um, and normally, as we know in the city, sometimes the nice way lets it go for years and years and years of neglect. I'm just trying to sort of coax them along a little bit more. That's where I'm asking the committee members if they can support that, if they also feel the same way that it's a public safety hazard, it's a traffic hazard, it's a eyesore, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not conducive to good public good. But if the additional facets of whether or not they will be penalized through fines, I know that's supposed to occur.
Yeah.
However, what's going to happen, whether or not they do that big removal, the way our city works. I'm just being honest about that one. I don't
Yep.
have a clue.
Okay. Thank you. Jay.
Um, with respect to with respect to the specific four that you raised, I wonder if it's actually, multiple different establishments or if somehow one establishment you know, got clearance to build this substantial streetery in, you know, on this block. And I'm also wondering if the relevant establishment or establishments are even still in business. Um, I admit this isn't a block I'm on terribly frequently myself, but
Because of this public discourse, I did not include the names. I do have names. However, as you can imagine, some people took liberty to make their special arrangements, and we want to put a little bit more ownership on those specific locations. DDOT has access to the same information I have, And I just want to use the address of those locations in order to direct DDOT to that location, because that's sometimes the way they move. So if we're real clear about the address, that would allow them to make some movement. And then also we can CC DPW on this ask as well. They're already ready to go. I'm just letting you know about DPW. But in regard and MPD ready to go. But I just want to, DDOT is the only one that needs a little bit more energy. But if it's an establishment that is violating a agreement that could be with any other DC agency, um, we can add that into the layering of the resolution. I, was that enough of an answer for you, Jay?
Um, I guess I was more just, yeah, I think that was not quite the question I was asking, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, as you point out, that it looks abandoned. It certainly
Yes.
doesn't look good. And I think if the uh supposed property isn't even, you know, a isn't even open, I think that might change the approach or the ability to get it resolved. Um, that's all I was asking.
Right, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Ignoring the specific addresses, but anywhere in the city or the ANC, right? Like if we know that a bar or restaurant that had a streetery is closed and the streetery is still there, I think we could just work directly with DPW and DDOT to flag that for them and get it removed, right? If it's like totally abandoned and the restaurant isn't even operating, then it's like the city should step in to do
They
something
can
about
talk
it.
to the owner of the building, right? So
Yeah.
presumably the restaurant is leasing the space.
Yes, exactly. And some of them, if they're only concentrating on their interior and not their exterior, you can understand that. And if they've reached some type of economic crisis that they're going through, or they just completely abandoned it altogether, there needs to be some proactive action to establish communication, as Johnny mentioned, with that establishment owner if possible. But if they've already had some type of communication and they still neglected it, I think that this is the opportune time to take some action from the community level on for these particular locations. And that's the reason why I brought it to this committee, because I know it's the appropriate committee for that.
Yep. Thanks, Karen. I see Jean in the audience has her hand raised. I'm gonna allow you to speak. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I just wanted to support whatever is appropriate for this committee to do about this issue. I've heard Commander Connors speak to it, that it's a real problem for them at the end of the night where people are hanging out in these areas. And so I support whatever this committee can do. I'm not sure what you can, but it's an issue for MPD for sure. And that would be my main concern. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Jean.
Could I mention something? Just, hey, Gene, thank you. By the way, let me know when we can hang out at the 9:30 club. I'll be love to see you.
Anytime you want.
Mean it. Okay, deal. Karen, what do you need from us? I'm happy to help you. I'm going to be out of town for a little while, but if you want a partnership, I'm here to be your partner.
I appreciate that as always, Johnny. And what we need is um, a resolution from our ANC to basically state that these locations are not conducive to the peace, order, quiet, and public safety, as well as the ideal environment of the city, because they have been abandoned, vacant for long periods of time and not serving a public need. And we need to have DDOT make sure that they're immediately removed, not not elongated for whatever period of time that it normally takes, because DPW is on standby. So a resolution to that effect would be very, very helpful. And I can craft something, but I also know that we have a array of beautiful minds on this committee who can add to it. So that's what my ask is. My ask is for all of the technical language that's needed for the removal under the Transportation Department of Transportation purview, that you all can contribute to that. That's my ask. Thank you.
Okay, Karen, we can put that as an item for next month, like for the resolution. I do think potentially, so that the October 1, 2025 debris removal assistance deadline is coming up, and on the temporary streetery program website, I'll put this in the chat just so people know what I'm talking about.
Is it too much of an overlap? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I think we could do it, but there is a potential for some of these, like if the city is offering help to businesses to remove streeteries if they no longer wish to operate them, right? They're not going to apply for the new program and build a new streetery that's in compliance with the new regulations. So by October 1st, if they email the city will help them take it down. Like they have to demolish it and put it in a way that like DPW can pick it up. But like if they email DDOT and DDOT says, okay, cool, you're not going to operate anymore, then they'll schedule it with DPW. It appears free of charge to remove them. So it kind of seems like potentially, like, are some of these businesses are they doing that program? Do they not know about the program and could be told about it, and then they do that and then it gets them removed? I just want to, because there's a mechanism in place.
Understood.
Yeah,
I,
but I don't think that prevents us from like kind of coming up with the language for a resolution and getting it together next month, ready to go, especially because then that toes up to the deadline. And then if these issues persist past this deadline, then it's like, oh, well, they didn't take the opportunity to get rid of the streeteries when the city was going to help them out. And then so we can kind of like
help
push
them.
DPW and DDOT to move. I think, yeah, some people might be removing them by the deadline. So I don't want to like penalize people who meet the deadline.
Okay. And that's understandable, because we may get more people who are interested. But what my goal is to make sure that they're not sitting past that deadline date, just sitting on the street completely abandoned. Because the ones that I did let you know that they're vacant buildings, I put that in the chat, along with the ones that just appear to not being used. But as long as we have those on, we flag those particular locations. And as you mentioned, there's going to be others. If we can incorporate all of that together, I guess by the time October comes, or when is our next meeting? Around the same time in October 13th, second week in
Yeah,
October.
something like that. I'll pull it up and we can I'll list the next two meeting dates, and then since it's 8:30, probably we can adjourn.
How about that?
But but yeah, so if I'm happy to have both that and the ADA multifamily parking resolutions on the agenda next month.
Excellent. Thank you.
So our next two meetings, September 10th and October 8th will be the next two committee meetings. Does anyone else have any other business before we go?
Yes, just 2 seconds. Just want to show you something, and we can table it and talk about it later, but it's been bugging me for a long time, and I pulled it up on a map. Thanks to Jay, I didn't know you can change the date of a map.
At Street View.
Okay.
This is a place of learning, the committee.
The intersection between University and Euclid, let me share my screen.
Yep.
There's construction. I think they're building apartments.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, can you let me share my screen, Matthew?
Oh, I have to do a thing.
Matt, sorry.
Make co-host, I think.
Yes.
I'll use the power judiciously.
If
Okay.
I kicked out the meeting, I know you didn't.
Well, all right, I'm not gonna do it anymore. You'll see that there's, can you see that? Can everyone
Yes.
see it?
Yes.
Okay. This has been blocking part of Euclid for a really long time. It was like a year and change. And I've seen a lot of issues with this. I've seen a lot of congestion. I've seen people almost get hit when cars are backing up. I've seen bikes almost get hit. I've seen a woman walking with a child in a stroller almost get hit. And there's just been a lot of tension on this road. Jay, I'm guessing, or whomever mentioned.
Yeah, I walk through there almost every morning.
And it's really frustrating to see. I saw something similar in Georgetown. I think they moved this to a side street. I would propose that we consider working with whomever as the authority to do that, to move this here, or there is also an alley here that would just make it easier for people driving, walking, or riding their bikes.
Yeah, I can, so they probably have a public space permit for this, related to construction. It might be on there, like, I can try to pull that and see if it's something that's approved.
Okay.
It should be, and then we can, potentially reach out to, DDOT about that. Something that I forgot to tell everyone, but is exciting for next month, is DDOT will be in attendance. We have a public outreach specialist, community liaison type person, that there's one for each ward, and Ward 1 hadn't had one for a while because of just staffing changes. But now there is someone assigned to Ward 1, and I've invited her to come to the meeting in September and kind of introduce herself to the committee. And oh shoot, what are we specifically talking about? I asked her to come so we could specifically talk about a particular issue that now I can't remember what that is, but there will be time for like general kind of questions and like how we can engage with DDOT as a committee, or like directly on things, not always through resolutions, and just like how to reach out to her if there's like issues like this. Sometimes, DDOT can answer these questions directly. So that'll be our guest next month. Karen, then Santiago, then I'm gonna let you guys go.
And I'm gonna keep mine real short because I took up a considerable amount earlier. The zoning and planning, if they're in a violation, I mean, you may also be able to get that issue, Johnny, through the zoning and planning committee as well, because if it's a building issue, it's a safety violation
Mhm.
of some sort. I would try to get someone to come out and cite that. I mean, I know you want to do it community wise, but just get some citations placed, with that particular construction company or whatever. But look at the information, communication first, find out what's going on. But if it's been going on for such a long time and they seem to have abandoned it, I certainly would think that you guys should contact the Department of Buildings to see who is in charge of that construction project, and to also make sure that they're not violating and they have an open application that you can have them come out and look up information, look at what's going on for that particular construction site. That was my take. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Santiago.
Yeah, really quickly. Actually, a second thing on what Karen was just saying, there's a 311 request for public space inspection, which is the part of DDOT that manages these things. So DOB would also be a good one, but Johnny, you can honestly just put in a request and then they'll come do an inspection. We'll see if they have better information. Sometimes they don't than us. And
Okay.
they're sometimes less, but you can go on 311 and put that in online. And I've just like include a picture. The thing I was going to say about the thing for next month is just, in my experience, sometimes the folks with the community engagement representatives, they don't have all the answers in the moment. So if people think about things that you like want to bring up that are kind of just like, you know, a random thing or something where you're not exactly sure what to do, I feel like it might be useful if we could email Matthew, if you feel okay with this, like emailing you with these things and like, so they know what we're coming with, so they
Yep.
can be a little bit prepared. Just because, you know, and I all due respect to them because they get so many complaints and other random requests that they're not always gonna have the answers. It's useful to have it ahead of time. That's just my plug.
That's a great point. So everyone think of your questions for DDOT. Send them to me before the committee meeting. When I send out the agenda, I will put a note. I will put a call to questions, so we can, if possible, have a list ready for Keisha Anderson is our community rep's name. So yeah, that'll be next month. Sounds like we have a couple agenda items already. Have a great August, everyone. We're halfway through. It's getting hot again. Survive the fascist takeover, hopefully.
Unfortunately, I probably will not be able to be here next month, but
Okay, yep. As usual, just everybody send me an email if you can't come, and I'll see you next time. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.